more can change in 1 week. Believe the hype, the train's leaving tonight. Hit the throttle, we headed straight to Chicago. It's only getting...
Tell you, listen to the All Elite podcast with my good friend Andrew. Rock on, baby!
Let's get ready to podcast. All Elite family, welcome to episode number 32 of the All Elite podcast, your first special live edition of the podcast. I'm your cero miedo host, Andrew Kazir, and as always, I'm joined by my boy, Bitter Mark, All Elite Wrestling fan, AJ Fitzgerald. And before we jump into things, I want to give a quick shout out to Ant Won't Stop for our new official theme song, AEW All Out. If you're listening to this live on YouTube, make sure you smash that subscribe button. And finally, as we wrap up our plugs for the week, I want to give a special shout out to Wrestling Loot for the awesome loot box we opened up on last week's bonus podcast. If you're here for the official Young Bucks Funko and Sammy G autograph giveaway, hold tight as we're going to announce the winner at the end of this podcast. With all that covered, AJ, how are things going?
Than Universal, it's been a pretty good week.
So AJ,
Yeah.
for the fans that didn't hear you because you were muted, you want to go ahead and give us that again? Sorry, buddy.
Why, yes, I do. Not much, but a whole bunch, actually. I don't know why I said not much. Hurricane almost killed us. I went down to Miami and ended up just hanging out with a bunch of friends in Miami, so that was great. And then I went to Disney World, Universal. I had a really busy, fun week, so I don't know. It was just really good the whole week.
That's awesome, dude. I'm happy to hear that you were able to stay safe from the hurricane. We joked about it a little bit on the last couple episodes, but you were managed to steer clear of all of that and stay alive, so we're happy about that. Otherwise, I'm doing all right. Just been working on the podcast, working on new things for the podcast, trying different things out, like going live for the first time. We're just trying new shit out, trying to get some different things going. We're obviously going to go over the news. AJ's going to give us his thoughts on Being the Elite as he watched it. And then we have a new segment called To the Lucha Mask, which we're going to go to the Lucha Mask, pull out a special topic or couple of topics to discuss on the podcast. After that, we'll go over the giveaway. So if you're one of the people who retweeted the tweet from last night, now's your chance to figure out if you won the Funko Pop and Sammy Guevara signed autograph. So that's cool. But let's jump right into the news. AJ, this week AEW announced the Full Gear main event. We've got Cody Rhodes versus Chris Jericho for the AEW Championship. What are your thoughts on this match, man? Do you think it's a little early for them to get this match out? Do you think it was a smart reason, smart way to sell tickets?
I think that's really what it is. There isn't as much hype going into this pay-per-view, but you have time to do that, obviously. But I think the smart thing to do is say, hey, we have a title match and we're not going to dick you around. This is it. And I think it's a good wrestling move. If this was any other kind of media, like TV or film or music, I would say, no, it was probably a weird move. But with wrestling, you're going for the wrestling. And I think they're trying to put an emphasis on the wrestling. So, I think it's a solid move to say this is the next title match.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And like you said, in the wrestling business, we have to let people know what the next match is going to be. I do think it's a little bit weird because we obviously have announced that the AEW Championship would be defended on TNT in the next couple of weeks in Philly. So it's a little bit weird to me in that sense. Like
is weird, yeah.
We have that match announced. We also have Cody versus Sammy Guevara as an announced match. So we're kind of disregarding those matches a little bit and making them feel like they don't really matter, at least to me as a fan. I mean, sure, there could be an upset because it's a new company, so you don't really know what's going to happen. There could be something shocking or surprising, but in all reality, I don't see anything too shocking or surprising coming from this. I really see it going to be Jericho versus Cody, which is fine. It's a perfectly fine match, but it's kind of weird that we had these matches to hype up TV that now sort of mean nothing. It's sort of a WWE thing to do, in my opinion.
It is a little bit, and it's okay. In defense, I think it's a pay-per-view. It doesn't have a lot of hype behind it. And on one hand, you can wait until TV starts and start putting all that into emotion. But TV starts, October 2nd? And then you have this pay-per-view in November. You're kind of cutting yourself short. If you announce it up front, then you have more time to build on the match instead of build up to there even being a match.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part. I mean, they've obviously been building Cody versus Jericho for a little while now anyway, but how can you really get involved in the match without that without I mean, there's such a short amount of time on TV. So they're doing themselves a favor. They obviously will have the Road 2 series and things like that to build up this match. So we have a lot to look forward to there. I just think it's a little interesting the way they announced it so early. It was obviously a move to sell tickets, which
Yeah.
is fine. And they obviously did a pretty good job at selling tickets for Full Gear. They didn't sell out Full Gear, but they were able to sell some tickets for Full Gear. A lot of tickets, and they did a really good job from what people are saying. It's already more tickets sold than what Raw did in Baltimore just a couple weeks ago. So obviously, we're not trying to compare a pay-per-view to a live TV show, but still not a bad job for AEW. I'm
I
gonna
don't
be there
know. I
live
think
for
that's
Full
fair.
Gear, so
Yeah, the True Black End real quick. I think that's fair. It's Monday Night Raw. That's not exactly an average TV show. And so for a company that is, it's on. We're not comparing the whole company to WWE. So to compare their pay-per-views to a Raw show in Baltimore, I think that's a fair comparison.
yeah, to an extent. I just think that obviously when you're basing ticket sales for a really hyped up pay-per-view event compared to a Raw, where Raw isn't
Sure.
generally hyped up too much to begin with, so
They have a lot of marketing behind them. They got a machine going.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, it must be nice to have that WWE machine
Yeah,
behind you. But in terms,
that just seat seller.
yeah. And AEW also announced another match pretty much to hype up the ticket sales and everything for Full Gear. We have Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega finally going to happen at Full Gear. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
this matchup, AJ?
Of course it had to, and we were coming to this, and it things are weird though. It's absolutely weird, and we all know this was not the plan, so there is a bit of a mulligan. But he lost to Pac, and I was defending that. I defended that vehemently. He had to lose to Pac because if you have Pac come in and just beat somebody and then gun for Adam Page, that makes a match way cooler than two losers fighting.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. But it's weird for Kenny now, and this adds a whole thing to the mix. I think it's better. We talked about it being better. I'm going to stand by that. I think it's better having this depth where Kenny Omega really needs a win here.
Yeah, well, and you're talking in terms of being able to promote a match on TV and really get people excited for a match. This is a
Yeah.
match that, with TV hype and TV build, this is going to be a huge match. This could be, like, once they really have time to build it every week on TV, that's what's going to have fans tuning in, is to see what Moxley does to Omega, what Omega has
Yeah.
to say about Moxley, and how these two can just build off of each other and continue to build this feud within each other. So I'm really excited for this one. I think it makes so much sense to
It's going to be
announce it.
crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy match. It makes so much sense to announce this one early because fans already know. If you don't know,
Oh,
you haven't
yeah.
been paying any attention. They were obviously going to build it up on TV, but this just allows you to roll into TV with the build already going. Even though, I mean, it was already going anyway, but this, people know, and now they have something to be excited about. And talk about a way to
Yeah.
move tickets. Fans know this is the spot where that feud is going to be continued or blown. I mean, I don't think this will be the blow-off in any way, shape, or form, but definitely a way
No,
to
but
establish it.
It's
and-
a way bigger match than Jericho and Rhodes. I'm sorry. I love Cody and Jericho. I'm sure they'll do great, but I don't care even like nearly as much.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I'm super interested in the Cody versus Jericho match because I would like Cody to win as a fan, but at the same time, as a fan of the company, I don't want the hot shot.
It would
title
look
reigns.
really weird.
So I don't.
It
Well,
would-
yeah, it would look weird and just.
No, not just that. Like a hot shot, and it's Cody.
Yes, exactly. Those two things are really not going to work out. Even no matter what your storyline planning is, I couldn't see that working. So it really, I would agree with you then, because this match would be more exciting just based on the surprise factor or the shock factor. We don't really know who's going to pick up the victory in this one, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like you said, I would not be upset at all. I would just be like, okay, if we're doing it. And with Kenny Omega and Moxley, it's just, God, it doesn't matter who wins. I want to see them wrestle at least, like, I don't know. I would be happy with 5 times. That's not going to happen, but I would.
Dude, yeah, as a fan, you want to see that match that many times, and just the way they can continue to build this story, I would be surprised if they didn't go at least 2 or 3 within
They gotta go at least
within a
3.
12-month year from now. You know what I mean? Not saying
Yeah.
by the end of the year, but within a 12-month calendar year, I see these two going 3 times. Where this feud is
Absolutely.
this is a really good feud that you can establish the company.
You can
based
make
off
this
of.
work real well, yeah.
Well, and the way
Those
that
are-
it's gotten so much better, you know what I mean? Like, you can't deny the fact that it's consistently gotten better. The way Omega
Oh, it
has
has.
worked with this feud and made it a better feud than what they were initially given.
Initially, it was not much. We weren't even that into it. We
Initially,
liked
it was just a dream match as proposed by them. I wouldn't necessarily say it was because it was a dream
cool.
match you didn't think of. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Exactly,
something that you
but it
had
was
thought
like
about
a
beforehand.
top WWE guy, top New Japan guy. That sounds good, and that was about it. But now you have this I don't know, this blood feuds shit coming in, so it's leaking through.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and that's been a big thing, is that Moxley has been, and Omega really has been the one to establish this feud, which gives me a lot of hope for it, because we obviously have that hope for Moxley. He's the one who you expect to turn it up. He's the one who you expect to bring it with on the mic, but we have Omega as the one doing it, and so you can only imagine that this feud is going to get better over time and not worse, you know?
I 100% agree, and I just think them. It's unfortunate they couldn't wrestle, but them not wrestling. Just, I don't know, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Just what the bomb doesn't go off, the more suspense there is, the better this is.
Yes, absolutely. I have to agree with you 100%. And I think that's the biggest thing, is you anticipated this match so heavily beforehand that now getting it many months later on another pay-per-view event, so you know they're going to get a lot of time to really establish themselves and do something great. And I think that's a big point of it all too. Is just that it's going to be on pay-per-view. They're not throwing this feud away on TV within the first couple of months. Another thing that WWE would probably have done with a feud of this stature. This is something that, I mean, I'm just thinking about the way that Okada and Omega were able to have such a long-standing feud.
No, you're right.
But only short amount of matches, a couple of tag matches, and then the big matches that people obviously remember. Whereas if that was a feud in WWE or another company, it would be
100 matches.
Yeah, so in this case, we didn't even get the first match when we were supposed to. We got all the promo, all the hype for it, and this is what it turned into. Yeah, and it's been awesome.
That's honestly a great comparison, because this seems very New Japan to me, where, like you said, you're going to space these matches out when you need these matches. You're not just going to throw them. And exactly like WWE does, just throw them around, house shows, pay-per-views, regular shows. Just you watch it all the time.
And everything is going to be so fresh, and that's another big point of it. It's just such a fresh matchup for a fresh time. So, really excited for this match. I mean, you would have to assume Omega's going to win, but how long have we been saying that for at this point?
I don't know anymore. I have no bearing at all.
And so that's a big thing too, is Omega's rolling on a couple of big losses. He's had some wins, so that's the smart thing too, is they were able to balance it out, not necessarily 50-50 booking, but give Omega enough wins to go with his losses that it doesn't really feel like he's done that bad. Or at least if you look at it in the sense of, Omega's on a losing streak, you can discuss the fact that, but he had these wins, he had these tag team wins, he had this, he had that. So, they've done a good job with that with Omega, but like I said, I really don't know who's going to win. That makes me even more excited to be there for the show. Got tickets through the StarCast bundle, so that's going to be epic seats, epic view. I'm so excited. Obviously, I'm going to actually have AJ or Phil, one of the two, joining me, hopefully, for the show.
We have to wrestle.
Yes, we are going to wrestle for the tickets outside of the arena. If you want to see the match, we're building it now, brother. In a couple of weeks, we'll do promos to build to it. AJ versus Andrew outside the Full Gear Arena.
I thought I was wrestling Phil. I don't want to wrestle you. You'll beat me. I can beat Phil, I think.
Yeah, so I'm just excited for the show overall and everything, especially, I think I already had bought my tickets after these matches were announced, but it was enough excitement beforehand, but these matches being announced was enough to make me really be excited to go. So just off of 2 matches, I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, the card
it's already stacked.
They have so much room to flesh out the card and make it better. That's something that I'm really excited about.
It's gonna be a great card. By the way, I'm sure you and Phil talked about this, but I don't love the name, and I'm not gonna pretend I do. I think it's an okay name at best, and I hope it doesn't stay around.
It's a strange name. I think we had discussed it a little bit a couple of times, and I don't know. I agree, I guess, in a sense that I don't know if I want it to stick around,
you're
but it's
not
been
used
pretty
to that
cool
yet.
because on Twitter, people have been doing the Full Gear Challenge, and they were able to sort of bring that community effort back together.
Sure,
And I don't think that was anticipated through the bringing back of this
that's
name.
fair.
So by saying that, I'm not necessarily saying that it's a good reason to have the name because I
No, but
don't
it's
think
a
they intended it.
positive
But
thing. It's a positive
it's a
effect.
positive effect of it. But outside of that, I mean, you're not wrong, but it's got to be a little bit difficult to think up pay-per-view names.
I'm sure, but I'm just thinking like, the Bash, Halloween Havoc,
Dude, you
you
just
know,
want them to use all the old WCW names. They
wouldn't it
can't
be
just.
great
It
though?
would be, but anyways, let's just jump to our next topic for AEW news this week. Cain Velasquez is someone who's very famous within the MMA wrestling community. If you've watched MMA wrestling, if you've watched mixed martial arts or UFC, then you're familiar with Cain Velasquez. He's someone who is a former UFC champion. He has a win over Brock Lesnar. Someone that's really worth taking note of within the MMA octagon. But when we're talking about the squared circle or a professional wrestling ring or something like that, I don't know. He's been impressive in AAA, but there have been talks that he's talked with AEW, he's talked with WWE. What are your thoughts on if AEW were to bring someone like Cain Velasquez in?
Listen, and this is maybe interesting from a person who does not. Okay, I know a little bit about MMA. I enjoy watching it, but the finer points and the legends, I only know a few. And I know Cain Velasquez's name, but I've never seen him fight, and I don't care. And I mean that in the nicest way. If he's great or a good wrestler, or he's has a lot to
He's
bring to the
pretty
table,
impressive as a big man. I mean, he was
yeah,
a heavyweight
and
champion
that's
in
good.
UFC.
For AEW.
That's the thing is he's a big man who has a legit win over Brock Lesnar. So
There's that too.
you have
And
Brock Lesnar promoted as the biggest guy in WWE, and you're able to bring Cain Velasquez in. If he can compete on any type of level as like any
I'm
decent.
thinking I didn't hate Ronda, so I don't think I'll hate this. If it's not going to be, I doubt it's going to be worse than Ronda because she wasn't bad, but that's what I'm thinking. It would be not bad at most. My worry is that we're creeping into TNA territory of MMA people, just bringing them
he's an
in.
established dude, but the thing that I
Yeah,
really am worried about it with is like MMA guys only come in for a short amount of time usually.
Yeah.
Like Ronda only came into WWE for a short amount of time. Kane only jumped in, or Kane was talking about doing 3 AAA events. Now it's expanded to doing talks with AAA, WWE, AEW. So he's obviously found a niche within wrestling that he enjoys and he enjoys doing. But I think that it's, as a fan, you got to be a little bit hesitant on buying in on another MMA guy coming in, being promoted as a champion, and then in a year they're gone already. And that's
it's not like he's in Bloodsport either. I would be more open. I'm not. I know that sounds memey, but I would be way more open to this if he did Bloodsport.
That's the unfortunate thing about Bloodsport. They replaced Moxley with Chris Dickinson. So like you go from a big name like that to a very low name like. Dickinson's fine, but it's not the same.
But it's not the same, kind of. It was Cain Velasquez.
Well, and that's where you saying Cain Velasquez. I'm like, wow, that would have been insane. But the money there would have probably been way too much. And I think that's where it becomes a difficult thing for AEW is you're going to be playing the money game with WWE for this guy. If he's had conversations with WWE, he's obviously been given the idea that he could go there. And they're going to pay him more, or at least as much as AEW is willing to. You have to find another reason for him to want to tune in or to be a part of you guys. You know what I mean? He has
a lot more freedom.
But he does have that history of working with Cody in AAA. They did a 6-man tag match. So, you never know.
He started there because I'm guessing somebody broke ground with him at AAA. And so if you go with AEW, then you get AEW and AAA. So it seems like the no-brainer decision for him, unless WWE starts playing the money game.
Exactly, and the money game is one of the bigger things that WWE can, or they're willing to win. I think that AEW has the financial assets there if they needed to, but I don't think they're going to drop all their money on one big star right now. But I mean, and that's the thing about Kane is I think he could be brought in immediately, treated like a main event player, and people would take notice, especially if you give him the right mouthpiece or the right manager to speak for him. Then you're set because he's a person that people can believe will beat your champion without any history in wrestling just because of his history in MMA. And I think that's one reason to really take into consideration the idea of bringing in someone like Kane. And I think that creates such an interesting dynamic for AEW. The type of matchups you could have: Cain Velasquez versus Kenny Omega, Cain Velasquez versus Cody Rhodes. You want to talk about Brock Lesnar destroying John Cena in a match? Imagine Cain Velasquez tearing Cody up in a match with Cody barely getting any like type of offense, just constantly fighting back but getting destroyed by Kane in the end. And like, there's so many different stories you can tell, and they have so many great wrestlers that they can utilize against someone like a Cain Velasquez that I think it's a no-brainer for AEW to bring him in if it's financially.
It's kind of crazy this is happening at all now that you're talking about it so much, and it's really dawning on me.
Yeah, like when you really get to think about the level of, like, because Cain Velasquez, granted, he wasn't a huge MMA champion. He wasn't someone that was touted like Conor McGregor or John Jones or
Brock
something
win is
like
kind
that.
of big, and he's a big dude, like you said.
Well, and that's a Brock win might not mean very much in MMA, but it means a lot coming into wrestling because Brock is someone that WWE has treated so important. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if WWE didn't throw the checkbook at Cain Velasquez, because that is one big way to promote and talk about a way to get guys over. I mean, you have him beat down Cody like we just talked about, and Cody's going to be over from that. That's going to get Cody way over, even if he loses.
Oh, you know who else? It would make me more interested in Tully Blanchard, who would definitely be the manager, because I don't care a bit about him right now.
Well, and what an that's a good thought, and I think that would be a great way to introduce him, as you have him come out, have a fight with Cody by being like a guy associated with Shawn Spears. Maybe not a Shawn Spears lackey, but someone associated with him. And you're just able to build up so many different cool things. I don't know, obviously, if Kane's coming into AEW, but it's something that I think I would be open to at the very least.
Oh, yeah.
And really interested in
I think it's very possible, to be honest.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's just something to keep an eye out on, and that would be something to shake up the wrestling world too. And that's where there's only so many of those nuggets in wrestling right now. You know what I mean? There's the Punk one, obviously, the giant golden, like, the second Punk comes back to any wrestling ring on live TV, the whole world is going to shut down. But outside of that, you only have so many nuggets where you can bring in a guy like Cain Velasquez or whoever and be that main event player right away. And I think that it's a really interesting thought.
At this point, I feel like The Rock would come to AEW before CM Punk.
Yeah, dude, I honestly think that either one of those guys are never coming back to wrestling, so it doesn't really matter.
It sucks.
Yeah, I think the Punk thing is disappointing, but I think that's where this crossover be continuing to happen. You know, we're not only seeing WWE guys try to go into the MMA. There have been so many MMA guys that are being promoted or being talked about as coming into professional wrestling, not just WWE. I mean, you obviously have Matt Riddle, but we have someone like Tom Lawler. He's someone who's done a lot of stuff. They've talked about so many other different people that I can't think of off the top of my head, that someone like Kane is someone who can immediately be an Impact player because he was the heavyweight champion. Not just was he a champion, he was the heavyweight champion. So he's a big dude who can come in and do big things really early. Yeah. And I think that's something to really pay attention to. And if I'm AEW, maybe I do offer him the extravagant amount of money.
You have to. You have to offer him a pretty damn good amount of money. I don't think they're going to offer him CM Punk money.
Well, but then it's difficult because he's obviously done well, and he could obviously have good to great matches with someone like Omega, but you have to feature him like a prominent star. Is he someone that's going to be willing to be on a week-to-week television thing? And that's my biggest thing. I
don't think he would be.
I mean, you could bring him in for like 3 to 4 months if he's just coming in to pretty much, he wins the first big one and then puts people over the rest of his way out. If he's only coming in for a short time, it's got to be primarily to put people over. But
of course, and I don't know. He'd do that probably.
I think he could put people over is the thing. A couple of victories, like as long as the matches are decent, you have victories over the former UFC World Heavyweight Champion. So.
I guess in my head I keep thinking, well, it's like Brock Lesnar, but it's not like Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar came back to a company where he was already a top guy.
Yes. So it's a little bit different. We obviously would have to view Kane in a different way, and it's obviously how they book him and stuff like that and who they book him against. But I think it leaves an interesting thing for AEW. I don't think it would mean so much for WWE because they would just do like a Brock versus Kane weird booked like fight, but you know it's
that
not
would
a fight.
Suck too,
well, like why would you want to see that? Because you obviously saw the real life fight where he real life lost. So why do you want to see the WWE produced match? Like,
Now that you
just for
mention
Brock
it.
to get his win back by WWE's booking. So,
Oh, ew. You're
yeah, I mean,
right.
so in all reality, I'm good on that, but that's another possibility of what could happen. We'll just have to wait and see. But he's someone who, if he's really interested in being a professional wrestler for an extended amount of time, he's someone who would be considered a top free agent, I would have to say.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. He's definitely one of those nuggets.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. Interesting thing there. Other interesting news, Cody Rhodes has been teasing a potential AEW TV championship. He did an interview with IGN, and he didn't say for sure that the championship was coming. He said they obviously have to establish the titles that they have right now, but with them coming into a TV deal and being on TNT Weekly, they've obviously considered it and taken it into heavy consideration. What do you think about that? TV championship in 2019.
I like it, actually. I would hope that it would not just be a TV. Like, I would hope it extends to all media platforms. But that said, I think it's really cool to have a title to make TV more interesting to watch, I guess. I mean, I like ECW's TV. I don't know. I'm pro because it's basically an intercontinental, but you're not calling. I don't know. It's a mid title, but a TV title is kind of more gimmicky than that.
I would like to see it be a championship on someone who's willing to work independent dates.
That would be
On
rad.
the indies, so people can see, like, because a lot of indies nowadays have like iPay-per-view, or there's obviously GIFs and stuff uploaded.
I feel like an internet champion makes more sense in 2019.
I think that the internet thing is weird, and Zack Ryder ruined it for everybody.
Yeah, that's the
anyway.
problem.
So there's that. But I think that a TV championship could be something interesting, but I think something like a legitimate international or like Universal, like, too bad WWE took the Universal name, but like a championship that goes across promotions where you're defending it in different, like, GCW or wherever you're working,
That would be really
and
cool.
being able to both promote that company and have your championship defended in a way that's different. You know, the 24/7 championship is so popular because it's different. It's a different type of championship. Now, yes, a TV championship is different because if you're, especially if it's the only one you're going to have defended on TV, but it's not. They already have the world championship match established for Philly, so, I mean, you could change it down the line where the TV champion is the only, but that's where a TV championship is weird. Are they going to be defending it every week? Things
I don't
like that.
think
What I
they
mean?
would
Like,
do it every week,
well,
but
then what's, like, I get why you wouldn't, but why is it the TV championship then? Like, is it
It's only defended on TV.
But pay-per-view is literally on TV.
yeah, that's where it gets dicey. But I think it just means only on the weekly programming.
Yeah, and that's
airing
fine,
on
but
TNT.
your regular championships are still being defended on TV. Your women's championship, your tag team championship, your world championship. So it takes away that value or
They've
that
always been
special
weird, to be
feeling
honest.
of a TV championship, and that's where I'm saying more of an international, or like you're
I
going
would
different
agree.
places and working different things, and I think it would be different and it would be interesting. And we'll have to wait and see. I think a TV championship is fine. I think it's a cool idea, especially if they do it the right way.
Use it as a TV title. I think that's the thing. I think they're just going to call an intercontinental title a TV title.
And it's gonna
That'll
be,
upset me.
Well, yeah, because
But-
you don't really want to see it defended on a pay-per-view. I mean, but
Yeah, it's
that's
the
where
TV
it
title.
becomes so
That'll be
weird
annoying.
because you feel like you're limiting. Because you feel like a TV championship type of guy would be someone like a Joey Janela or someone that you're trying to establish. But when you're saying they're only the TV champion and you're not putting them in pay-per-view matches, or you're putting them in a pay-per-view match where they're not
You're doing
defending
a
the
disservice
title,
to them, yeah.
you're making them feel like they've peaked at just your TV level.
And like it's weird to do. Okay, I'm gonna backtrack. I do not like the idea of a TV title anymore, simply because if you're gonna do a mid title, just do a mid title. And maybe they're just gonna change the definition of what a TV title is, and that's fine. Maybe Cody's just a mark for the word TV title. That's cool.
Yeah, and I think that
I'm
you
calling
never
him
know.
Mark.
Cody's definitely infatuated with a lot of things from the WCW era, and you could see why, due to everything with his dad and whatnot. But it's just you could see where they're trying to pull a lot of things from that time period, and I don't necessarily think this is one of those things that they should pull.
I would agree.
But in more confirmed news, not really speculated news, they have announced that AEW will be in Tennessee for TV on Wednesday, November 13th at the Royal Farms Arena. They announced that on Being the Elite this week. Just more TV dates being announced for more fans who are now, I think fans are just being patient and waiting for AEW to come to them more so than anything.
Yep.
And that makes sense. Obviously, there are fans like me who are willing to fly out to Full Gear and see these big pay-per-view events. But a lot of fans at this point are willing to save their money and wait for AEW to travel across the country to them or wherever they are. And that's another exciting point, is just I'm excited to see AEW hit some of these big wrestling markets and being able to see these notorious wrestling crowds with AEW. You know, we obviously got to see Chicago, but when you see Philly, when you see New York, whenever they go to London and they perform in the UK and they do those matches, that's going to be really interesting to see the dynamic, the difference in the companies when they're when they're performing in front of different audiences and the way the audience reacts. So I think that's something I'm really excited for. I don't necessarily think Tennessee is on the top of my list, but it's another cool announcement.
No, I mean, I don't know about top of the list to go see it, but I thought this was a genius, because this is what I've been thinking when I heard this is, my God, AEW has been so smart about where they're booking these shows, because they're booking their shows only in the most proven wrestling spots in America right now. They're hitting all over the Northeast, up and down. And then where do they go next? Tennessee, because out of anywhere in America, if you're talking about a state that has just a really good wrestling population and fans will go to see the show, then you got to talk about Tennessee. Because Tennessee, I mean, number one, they were a territory for so long. And then ever since WCW went down, really, Tennessee's been ignored. And ever since Smoky Mountain went down, of course, in the 90s, they were extremely ignored. And so you still had all those people. And so it's not so. Then TNA happened, and obviously that revitalized that whole territory, but they weren't there for very long before they went to Orlando. But even then, they were going to Tennessee, and then when TNA died and they went back, the fans still showed up. Tennessee is such a good wrestling state, and I mean, it's definitely southern and backwoods and dirty and all that, you know. But
jeez,
damn,
dude,
you know exactly what I mean. It's Smoky Mountain,
dude. I'm not gonna turn heel on a whole freaking state, dude.
I will.
If there's any listeners out there
southern,
from Tennessee, I'm down with Tennessee.
Of
I don't
course
think there's
there
anything wrong with the South at all, man. There's nothing wrong.
I don't think there's anything wrong with Tennessee wrestling, because it's some of the best wrestling in the world.
Tennessee was mad dirty, dude.
It is dirty. It's dirty and gritty. It's Terry Funk. It's Terry Funk and Jerry Lawler.
Tennessee is a great place.
I've been to Tennessee.
Yeah, and what did you think of it? That it was bad?
I wasn't there for that long. I stayed in a hotel, though.
It was pretty good, huh?
It was
I'm
fine.
putting over Tennessee hard. Why else would AEW?
That's fine. The point is, when I'm saying dirty, I mean
to all
it was
of our Tennessee fans. I
gritty. It was hardcore before it was hardcore. It's like when you had the territories, Tennessee was basically not ECW, but the tables and chairs and beating each other with weapons and gouging eyes and Terry Funk getting blinded by Lawler and all that crazy
These
stuff.
Are the feelings of Big Match AJ only. He's the only one who's calling Tennessee dirty.
I'm calling Tennessee elite.
Yes, Tennessee is an elite state. There we go. But overall, it's cool to see AEW continue touring, and obviously, like you said, they have a smart plan in place as to where they're going to go within
wrestling.
Yeah, and it's a smart. Obviously, they've got the idea, and that's where having a guy like Tony Khan behind you is genius. And it's nice to have that financial backing and the intelligence behind you. Because, like, Ring of Honor, they have the money. They run a lot of Northeast, Philly.
That's what they
don't have the money, or they don't have the backing to go all across the United States where there's all these other markets that are popular.
But they'll only go to those places once in a blue moon. And it's not because
AEW
the numbers
has
are bad.
It's every week to go to another big market that's going to make sense for them. So
they can get
it's been a great
there,
job so far. The ticket sales are obviously within reason as well. So that's something to just continue excited for. I'm excited for when AEW starts coming to my neck of the woods so I can go to the live TV shows, because once it gets closer to me, I'm down to travel. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they got to hit the Midwest, because if they're going to hit Tennessee, then I imagine that they're going to come up more toward Chicago and stuff, obviously. I don't see
them running Rapid City, South Dakota.
Probably not, but they'll be around.
Maybe, they'll be around Denver, or the Colorado area.
Denver,
you have to assume.
absolutely.
So, That's something to be excited about. I just continue to be excited as they announce new places. Like I said, once they start announcing New York, once they go overseas and announce the UK tour, those things are going to be exciting for me as a fan as well, just because those fans are established good fan bases that you're going to see a great show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, again, it's smart booking. Like London, London's going to happen if they haven't said it already, because it's just one of those places right now that's hot for wrestling, or has never stopped being hot for wrestling.
Yes, exactly.
WWE's done a lot of ignoring these places.
And the UK has just been getting hotter. I mean,
Hotter
granted,
and
the
hotter.
independent scene has sort of dried up a little bit with WWE, but they've continued to establish new
Absolutely.
talent, and the fan base just continues to be one of the top. Like, whenever you're watching wrestling from the UK, it's a great show. Granted, it's usually taped. It's a great show just because of how loud they are. So.
Yep. And it's so good. And I think if they keep the strategy of hitting the places that have been starved for wrestling and hitting them really hard and just feeding them what they've been asking for, you're going to obviously sell out shows. And not even sell out. You're going to just sell enough of the arena that it's not going to matter.
Exactly. And I think that's the big thing to point out is we're not necessarily going for every show to be a sellout anymore.
Yeah.
Not every show is going to be a sellout. But these shows that are in really specific markets are going to sell out quick, or they're going to be really popular. They're willing. The fact that they're willing to run Chicago the day before Thanksgiving shows how much faith they have in that Chicago market to sell. Because they obviously had to do a show the day before Thanksgiving. They've got a Wednesday show. You've got to choose a time and date to do it. And Chicago is the one place that they have the faith for the fans to show up, and you gotta agree. Really, it makes sense. And like thinking about it now, and I wonder how that conversation, that process went, where they realized, wow, we have to do a show the day before Thanksgiving. Awesome.
Yeah.
Like, because you're not getting traveling fans for that, man.
Oh yeah, no. That's a tough, and that's when you have
like
to
being like a stopgap. As okay, I'm gonna drive to New York and stop in Chicago on the way. It doesn't work out. You would be driving all of Thanksgiving.
No, you could book. You could fly. You could book New York, somewhere in New York, and just because there's going to be people in New York, maybe not a huge arena, but an arena. Philly, you could do all. You can always do Philly, but then you're going back.
Yep.
And the other one is maybe you could do Reseda because it's so small, and you could just make it cozy.
Like a small cozy. That would be weird.
Yeah, like a pre-Thanksgiving.
That would be weird. That would be crazy. It would be weird. Especially I think that there's somewhere in that like California, like West Coast area they could run in that case. But I don't know. I think they obviously chose a really great destination for that Thanksgiving show with Chicago. But that really wraps up all of our AEW news for this week. Let's jump right into our Being the Elite thoughts. I actually haven't seen this week's episode of Being the Elite. I'm going to do a quick reaction episode later tonight or tomorrow and post that on our YouTube. But our boy AJ did watch this week's episode of Being the Elite. So AJ, let us know what you thought without giving too many spoilers. But what was it? A great show, good show, bad show?
It was a good show. There were some things in it, like every Being the Elite, where I thought this is not good. But for most of it, there was some stuff on there where it made me realize I should really keep watching Being the Elite instead of just infrequently, because there's a lot of like Young Bucks specific stuff you get on Being the Elite that you will not get on Road to, and you'll just never see it if you don't watch it, which is bad, I guess. But overall, the Young Bucks, they were doing some cool stuff to hype up the tag tournament and, talk about their match. And it was just all really well done. And I liked it all. And it made me care about the match more. And so I definitely recommend you watch Being the Elite this week just for those segments alone. You can skip through everything else if you really don't want to see it. But outside of that, I don't know. There were the dumb segments, but they were kind of quick and few and in between. But it was a good episode. And I kind of wish we got more stuff like that on Road to.
Well, I'm happy to hear that it was a good episode. You and I always have mixed feelings on Being the Elite. It's either a really good or a really bad episode. And that's why we started to tune in more once again, just because they've gotten a lot better, and you never know. They've talked about how Being the Elite might not be something that continues once TV starts, so maybe now's a good time to just stay up to date with what they've got going on the channel. And I think that I'm really excited to tune into this episode just to see how they continue to build the TV and build to their pay-per-view match and build to that tag team tournament, which is something that's obviously important. So it's cool to see that they've continued to do that on Being the Elite, and I'm glad to see that you obviously had a good time watching it.
I did, and I kind of stopped in the middle, and then I went
don't.
Yeah, a lot of times, actually. But this was one of the episodes because I'd been away for so long.
This is why people leave reviews saying that we are anti-AEW. Because you say stuff like, all the time they're bad. They're not that bad that often. They're actually pretty good episodes. Being the Elite's a really enjoyable series, especially as a Young Bucks fan.
It is.
You have to remind yourself, because AJ comes into this with a mindset of an AEW fan, not necessarily a Young Bucks fan, where AJ wants to see them build to every pay-per-view and to every show with this show. But this show was meant to build up the Young Bucks. It was their vlog, and they shouldn't have to then transition it to mean something different. So when I stop thinking about it in the sense of this is what they should be doing with their time, I realize that, well, this is a really good show. Exactly. But this is exactly why people hate the fact that we are ever negative about AEW. And I get it, I guess.
I gotta say something.
You do, and I don't blame you, but I'm still saying, like, AEW, Being the Elite has always consistently, for me, been good to great to sometimes
to all right or to like weird. But okay, if I was watching it without being analytical at all, I would be in complete agreement that it's just okay. Yeah, I would never have a bad thing to say, and I would just be like, okay, yeah, this episode was whatever. This one was really good.
Yeah,
blah blah
fair. We have to be a little bit more analytical with it.
Hey, is Joey Ryan
in this episode?
Yeah, I don't think he is. No.
Well, then it's a pretty good episode. It's funny to me that I met Joey Ryan in the elevator. And I just couldn't be more like, I didn't know what to do, man. Like, I didn't want to say anything shitty to him, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm so like, dude, you know how many times I've been like, Joey Ryan fucking sucks, and then I'm just like, he's not a bad guy. He's a cool dude.
You should have said, "Where's that blonde girl?"
Dude, you're right. I should have asked him. I missed the opportunity, but yeah, I was in the elevator with Joey Ryan at the hotel, and I was just like, this couldn't be anybody else. But no,
I used to love Joey Ryan. I really used to like him a lot.
He's different now.
I'm
indifferent on Joey Ryan. But that's another topic for another day. And speaking of new topics, let's go to our new special conversation starter, To the Lucha Mask. AJ, I've got this Lucha Mask from my pro wrestling loot crate that I got last week. And he's got some conversation starters. Every week we'll ask our Twitter audience to send in a couple of different discussion topics. This week we're just testing out the Lucha Mask, so we didn't ask for any discussion topics. But next week you can bet that we'll be asking you guys, so be ready to send some in. Let's jump right into the Lucha Mask and see what our first discussion topic for this week is, AJ. What does the Lucha Mask have for the Luchador?
I don't know. I'm excited. I'm scared.
Killer Cross. Let's talk about the Killer Cross situation. I'm not sure if you're too familiar with this, AJ, but a lot of people have been wanting Killer Cross to be released from his contract with Impact. Impact has been holding Killer Cross to his deal, not necessarily letting him go. Sammy Guevara, an AEW superstar, actually tweeted out Free Killer Cross, which has sort of started a Free Killer Cross movement across social media, where people are talking about how they want Cross released from his contract, essentially, and freed from the Impact zone. What do you think, man?
Okay, here's the thing. I don't know a ton about Killer Cross. I've only seen him a couple of times. Because I know he was a Lucha Underground guy, right? But I wasn't really watching Lucha that much, and I still needed to watch it. But I do know he's good. I do know people like him. And so it just seems like this happens way too often for people who sign contracts that say independent contractor. That's where my head is at.
It's so weird. Like, which way is it? Is it like, because if they're signing a contract, I'm on the one hand of saying, you really should fulfill your contract. That's what your deal was. That's what you said you wanted to do. You should fulfill your contract. But when you're an independent contractor and you're able to work here and here and here, you should
just be able to leave.
But you're just not there because they have TV. I do get the necessity to have limitations on superstars. You don't want someone bouncing back and forth from AEW and WWE and Raw.
Fair.
Whatever. That's understandable. But within the circumstances of this, in the realm of this, I don't necessarily know a ton about his contract or that whole situation to speak on.
That's true.
But I do think that if you're Impact and you're not going to use someone who's so popular, you're just going to have the social media backlash on you.
Petty.
You can continue to use him, and obviously he'll show up or whatever, but then it just becomes weird and dicey anyway. Yeah, you can turn it into an angle, but that's literally such a TNA thing to do.
It really is. They can't do that anymore.
Yeah, so I think that it's interesting because I think that there's definitely opportunity for Killer Cross in some of these bigger promotions. There have been discussions of him showing up in WWE or AEW. I don't know if he's necessarily had discussions with either company. Obviously, he's locked into a contract, but his girlfriend, Scarlett Bordeaux, was at the WWE Performance Center within the last couple of weeks, so you have to assume that they're likely going to... I mean, you don't have to assume they're going to WWE, but they're going somewhere. They're obviously at the StarCast area as well, so they're going somewhere. It's just a matter of where. And I don't know much about Cross, so I don't know if I have a ton of hype for it, but it's an interesting thing that's going on with him. I do hope that he's able to get what he wants, but these guys have to understand, if you're signing a contract, sign a contract that makes sense. You can't sign a contract to TNA for 5 years and then get a lot more popular after one and then say, you know what, I think I'm just done here.
Yeah, and not only that, I don't know. It's just the whole business of how these contracts work and have worked, and I'm using worked loosely. It's just kind of bullshit. And we learned how much bullshit it was with the CM Punk lawsuit, I think. I think that's when the most came out about how nonsense these contracts are. But it's so topsy-turvy and weird, and it's amazing to me that it's not just WWE, but this spans across multiple wrestling promotions all over America.
It's just weird. It's a touchy thing, you know. You're either on one side of the fence or the other. I feel like. Literally,
I guess
is you feel well. I mean, look at me and you. We're kind of on two different sides here. You're sitting here saying that he should be able to get out of his contract. It's an independent.
He should.
Well, I guess when I think about it, as I say that statement, when you think about if his contract literally says anywhere in it independent contractor, you're right. Otherwise, I think that we're just taking like a formal statement that a lot of wrestlers throw around and attach it to what they're doing. But it depends on what your contract says. If your contract says independent contractor, it really shouldn't even be a hard discussion.
And it could say something else, or it could have, blah, blah, blah.
If
like,
I'm an independent contractor, I should be able to sever ties with whatever contract
Ideally.
I've done, especially if there's a reason like unhappiness or like, because if I have a service that I'm providing to someone, say I'm mowing your lawn.
Or if you're not working.
Say I'm mowing your lawn and you're just sitting there making me feel like shit, or you're not giving me the money, I should be able to then say, okay, I'm an independent contractor, I'm severing our ties, let's go elsewhere. Or
they're paying you, but you're not doing work, and you're saying, hey, I want to work.
So I don't know, maybe you and the Lucha Mask pulled me to the other side, brother. But we'll wrap up that conversation. Let's jump into another one. We'll go right to the Lucha Mask for discussion topic number 2. Let's see what we got from the Lucha Mask here. Who are Chris Jericho's mystery partners going to be? Now, I know a lot of people's easy speculation is going to be, well, it's LAX, dude, why are you even talking about it? But Jericho is someone who's wicked smart. Jericho's wicked smart, and he's on his podcast referencing the idea of working with LAX already, which I feel like is an easy way for Jericho to bait and switch fans and for him to bring in someone else in some way. And then I was thinking about it really hard, and you know what Jericho did? He looked back and he pointed at someone and talked about his hair, his shitty hair or whatever, and he happens to be associated with a group that's really well-known in Canada, the New Heart Foundation, you know? So if maybe Jericho's going to bring in someone like Pillman and Teddy Hart, or like, you know what I'm saying? So
I would love if Teddy Hart was on a major promotion
Davey Boy
in 2019.
Smith and Teddy Hart alongside
Jericho,
dude.
Just Teddy Hart.
Dude, like, think about it though from a realistic. Dude, you're hyped up, but listen, think about it from a realistic perspective. If we have Jericho aligned with this Hart Foundation group of Teddy and Davey Boy and Pillman, like, what a way to elevate these three guys, really establish. I mean, you could have Pillman break away down the line the same way you did with Evolution with Randy Orton. Like, it almost feels like that type of group just with these three guys, but Jericho's like the old guy, but he's the main guy.
Ric Flair.
And I mean, I don't know that that's going to happen. It's obviously super off the wall speculation, but you see Pillman
really want this to happen.
You see Pillman continue to be featured. Obviously, there's a working relationship between MLW and AEW. So if they're able to make this work, dude, that's something that I would be excited about. So that's the whole reason that the Lucha Mask has that topic, because I know a lot of people are saying, man, it's LAX. I could really see this being a way for Jericho to throw people off the scent of even thinking something like this, and then boom, it's totally different.
I was going to say it's the Dark Order for nonsense reasons of just, Canada and also the Dark Order suck right now. But Now, if it's anything but the New Era Heart Foundation, I'm going to be really bummed out.
Yeah, so I'm with you there, dude, and that's where they need to let us be bookers. Nah, man, but like literally, it's a cool idea. I think there's a lot of potential cool ideas, but there's only so many like known tag teams that you can bring out and get that pop for. I think it's a weird. How do you explain LAX wanting to work with Jericho? Is it just a money thing or something like that? It's way easier to tell this story of the involvement of Teddy Hart and things like that.
Yeah.
I feel like than just because LAX isn't a team that seems like they would just
they wouldn't care. They wouldn't be like, oh, we respect the legend of Chris Jericho.
Well, it's like, oh, we have a feud with the Young Bucks, so we have to team with Jericho. I get it in the wrestling realm, it makes sense, but it's very
that is
forced.
a WWE thing. That's
that's
very
what
WWE.
I'm saying. It's super WWE. These guys are all feuding. Let's throw them all together in a 6-man match. It's also kind of a New Japan thing, so it is
it's an everything thing, I guess.
Yeah, and that's why it's so accepted within wrestling. I'm saying maybe just do it different this time.
I agree.
And our last topic from the Lucha Mask. Let's see. AJ, you're not giving me any drum rolls. You're not getting hyped for the Lucha Mask. Is Hangman Page a main eventer following his main event match with Jericho?
Nope.
That's simple, huh? I think that there's a little more discussion to be had there. I think that they tried a little bit.
They did try, and they did a good job.
It really depends on where we go from TV, but they didn't establish. I'm with you 100% that they didn't establish it with that pay-per-view main event.
Card.
He's upper mid card based upon what they told us. I mean, that's literally the only reason. They've had some cool or funny segments, I guess, on Being the Elite with him. They've had some decent segments with him on Road 2, but they haven't really done a lot to establish him as a main event star or the main guy or anything like that.
Nope. Yeah.
And then his main event match with Jericho, it was just fine.
It was a good match, and it was definitely, if he had won the match, then I would be saying, yeah, he's a main eventer, and because the match was so good, I don't hate it. But he lost,
But the right
which
guy
is
won.
fine. The right guy won, and now you have him going into a great feud with Pac. That's going to be great because they already had a great match, so we know it's going to be great. I think it's good. I don't think it's a bad thing.
It's weird because the feud with Pac, I feel like it almost sets up a way to establish Pac even more so than it does.
It definitely should. It definitely should, because let's be honest, Pac is better here.
Well, and Page kind of already has a win over him. Technically,
he does.
A disqualification win. I mean, obviously, we're not trying to go 50-50 booking here, but I don't necessarily want Page going over the guy who just beat Kenny Omega.
Okay, honestly, I think if Pac were to just steamroll the motherfucker, I would be fine with it, because I'm like, Pac's just going to come in. Pac's just going to come in and kill everybody. I'm fine with it.
I like Page. He's a real cool guy. When I met him at the meet and greet, he's a dope
down
dude.
with him, but I'm way more down with Pac.
But they just need to do a little bit more serious stuff with him, and I think
that would help.
I think he needs to stick with the Full Gear Challenge, brother. He needs to like. I mean, and it's not. It's just like a main eventer type thing. You have a specific desire of a look.
You don't think he looks good though?
I think he looks fine. I think he looks fine, but like when you really look at him compared to other wrestlers, I don't know. I
thought he was in better shape than Cody. I don't know.
You're right. That's fair. But he's just a little. Maybe he's shorter. Maybe that's the thing. He's a little bit shorter than Cody. He just kind of looks like an average guy to me, like an average guy who goes to the gym.
I think that's kind of good. I think that works in his favor of being like an everyman.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe, yeah, you're probably right. If he looked like jacked and every muscle and everything, yeah, you're right. I'll give you that. So I don't know. I just think they need to treat him a little bit more serious. And giving him that horse entrance would have felt a lot cooler if everything up to that wasn't sort of like a joke about him. You know?
Cowboy shit.
The cowboy shit thing would have been fine, and that worked, but there was so much before any of that it was like... Dude.
And it sucks because with that first Pac match, you like, it was very clear, like, oh, I can get behind this guy very quickly and it'd be awesome. And then it never happened again.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's the thing is going into that Pac match, you were really hyped for Adam Page. And the way they built it was really hyped for Adam Page. And then coming off of it, we had a really long delay before we got anything for Adam Page, and I think that was the most disappointing factor there.
No, I agree with that very much. And I think Adam Page is destined to be a main event wrestler in AEW. I think the same thing
It's
about
just gonna happen
MJF.
over time. But I feel like
Yep.
Page is gonna need a turn.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't think that he can establish he's kind of really over, so I might be wrong because within the crowd standpoint, he gets a good pop and everything, but I think that he's like limited to maybe an upper mid card role as a face
Maybe.
until he makes the turn, and then he could turn back down the line after he's really established himself. But
I didn't
he doesn't
consider
seem
that,
like a
really.
guy that I can believe can get a lot of legitimate wins all by himself right now, just because of how they've booked him. Because he didn't beat Pac straight up. He won his title match from a battle royal. It took him 20 minutes to beat Kip Sabian. He had a decent showing in that Fatal 4-Way, but that's the cleanest win he had was in a Fatal 4-Way match.
This feels very Tommy Dreamer to me. The entire situation of just, man, we want everybody to like this guy. We want and they just don't like him. And then
I think
there's nothing wrong with him.
He has fans and he is liked.
Yeah, the same thing, Tommy Dreamer. He has people who like him, but they haven't like embraced
I just think
him.
that
They haven't accepted him.
Where they took time and care with Omega's wins and losses, with all of Hangman's wins, they haven't felt like they meant anything. Because they were all weird. Like I said, he beat Pac off of disqualification. He comes in at number 21 and wins the Battle Royal without really doing much, without having a great showing. He has that Fatal 4-Way match. It was a decent match. He has a match with Kip Sabian, and it takes him the whole time to win the match. And it's something that they poke fun at now, but when you add it up to all of these things, this is why people aren't taking him too serious, because all of his wins weren't legit.
You're right.
And then throughout the whole time of booking him, they never booked him to seem legit with his storytelling and everything on being the elite. So,
I don't know.
and I really wanted to like Adam Page.
Here is what I think. Here's what I think 100%. Adam Page is not going to start that ascent into stardom, wrestling like fame, until we see him in an angle with MJF.
If he can, but if he's a good, you might be right there for sure. But also, if he has good matches, like the matches that they claim he can have, because I haven't seen a ton of Adam Page matches, so I don't know. But if he comes out and is having like 4-star classics, then okay. Then that's a good way to establish it as well. But otherwise, the way that he's won and the way that they've booked him, it just isn't the way that I feel like you would book a winning like champion.
Yeah.
And so that's a difficult thing.
I think once he has the right opponent, we're both gonna start seeing, oh yeah, he's a star. Like clearly they were right about this guy, because I feel like once you get him with the
they'll
right
let him do that to MJF. They'll let him beat down MJF, and like they'll let MJF run him down on the mic, and then he'll get that attack in, which will help him in the long run. But it's like they had the opportunity now.
Yeah,
he could have come out of
the thing.
He could have come out of All Out right now as a legitimate champion.
Then you don't have to have Pac beat him and make him look shittier. Then you can just have him go into an angle that he should have already been in. And
I'll be shocked if they do Pac versus Page. I'll be shocked if it doesn't go to a draw.
I think you're right with that being the mindset. I don't know if that's what's going to happen.
How well they've tried to promote like the idea of draws being a thing in AEW, and neither one of those guys could really afford a loss at this point. Like Pac could lose, but it would be way better for him to win. It would also be way better for both men to go the distance in a 20-minute match and go to a draw in like the second best match on the card. Now we'll have to wait and see if that's what happens, but I just think that the way they've booked Page and everything with Page up to this point, he needs to go into that match with Pac and win. Like I don't see a scenario where he goes into it and loses and comes out looking good, because we proved he can't lose and look good.
You know what? I'm wrong about what I said earlier. I would like it if Pac won, just because I think Pac's cool. But you're right, he does need to win, because Pac doesn't need to win. Pac can be fine if he doesn't win.
Yeah, so I think it needs to either go to a draw or an Adam Page win, but we'll have to wait and see. That wraps up this week's To the Lucha Mask. Next week, we'll be back with To the Lucha Mask. So, be sure to send us a couple of discussion points so we can include in the Lucha Mask for something to talk about next week. As we're wrapping things up, though, we have to talk about a giveaway that was announced on Twitter last night. If you're one of the few who were able to retweet this tweet in the short amount of time that we gave you, congratulations, because you were entered into a giveaway. Now, if you are none other than AJ, do a drum roll. You are none other than one of the people who entered in. We have Gotham City's own Bungholio 12. He's our boy. Bungholio has won the Sammy Guevara signed autograph, as well as a pair of Young Bucks Funko Pop. We'll be getting those sent out. So that's a cool thing that we were able to do. Keep an eye out for more giveaways, as we'll be continuing those every week before the podcast. Something for everyone to keep interested in. We're also going to be continuing going live over the next couple of weeks and months as we get used to things. So that way, once Wednesdays start and we have the show go on, we can either go live at the very end of the show or right after the show. So that's something that we're just testing out, getting used to it now. Otherwise, AJ, go ahead and talk about your social media accounts and where people can find you.
You can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitzy.
That's good, and make sure you follow our boy on Twitter. Our Twitter following has been growing all around. Follow Big Match AJ. Make sure you follow our boy Philip at Philip Domino on Twitter. He's our boy. He's sometimes here, sometimes not. You know, you can't win them all with Phil.
He's an enigma. It's like Jeff Hardy.
And I just want to give another shout out to our boy Ant Won't Stop for the official AEW podcast theme song, AEW All Out. Thank you, Ant Won't Stop. I also want to remind you guys to follow us on Twitter at All Elite Podcast, on Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod, and on Instagram at All Elite Everything. Don't forget, if you want to join us for discussion during the week, you can meet us on the All Elite Wrestling Discord at discord.io/AllElitePodcast. If you're listening to us live on YouTube or later on YouTube, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother, because we're growing every week. And finally, as we wrap up our last little bit of plugs, I do once again want to shout out our boys at Wrestling Loot for that awesome Wrestling Loot box we opened up last week. It was a great time doing that. If you're interested in those, make sure you check out Wrestling Loot on Twitter. And that really covers everything for this week. Thank you guys for joining us for our special live edition of the podcast. Maybe next week we'll get a couple people to tune in.